evening. We're going to call this initial meeting of the Alameda Charter Review Committee meeting to order. I'm Ron Saunders, your manager. And I will be starting us off with the meeting. We have an agenda. We have people watching from home. It's being broadcast on our website and also the usual ways we broadcast council meetings. And so when you're speaking, please turn on your microphone so they can hear you at home. So the green button means you're live and you can see it light up like mine. So initially what we want to do tonight is just a little brief introduction, then select the chair and vice chair, then talk about what y'all are going to be looking at as far as items for discussion. We have before you the resolution that established the committee that was passed by the village council at their last meeting, regular meeting, and then we also have a copy of the charter, and so that way you'll have that to look at. People at home can go online, and so everything that you're looking at, the people at home can see it. This is the first charter review committee that in several years, so it's been a while. So I know most of you are new to this, and so we want to just basically do a brief introduction and talk about the charter. What I've told people is the charter is like our Constitution. You have at the United States level the Constitution, and then you have statutes. I always say that the Constitution is written in ink and statutes in pencil. Same with us. The charter really hasn't changed much. That's like the pen version. The village code is where we make a lot of changes. So I think that's kind of the attitude I've had towards the charter. Is it's like the guiding document. It hasn't been changed lately, but anything that happens it's in the ordinance. I mean the resolution that everything has to be considered by you first. Then it will go to council. Then it will go to the voters. So it's a three-step process, and we have a deadline of May only because we have to get on the ballot, and that's a process there. We're not sure how long it will take for you all to reach some decisions. Obviously, it depends on how much detail you want to get into. We expect you to meet probably once a week at least. I've asked to have a facilitator, at least one of your meetings, from Able City East. The people did our comp plan. Jason has agreed to come in and at least help if you need a facilitator. And the Florida League of Cities has agreed to give us some oversight. So if we have any questions or comments, they're going to look at everything we do here. And if you have a question, from that standpoint, we didn't want to have to bring our legal counsel in because I don't think we need it. But if you do, we can always send it up to League of Cities, who has offered to provide staffing for us if we needed it. So with that, I'll see if you have any questions, and we'll get right to the selection of chair and vice chair. Any questions? Okay. And once again, at home, if you're watching, I guess you can raise your hand once again in the meeting. We have one member of the public here, Sue Miller, and we have our village mayor, Don Horton, in the back. I've already gotten notice from a couple of our council. I believe Deb Gillis and Steve Friedman are watching. Sharon Mahoney's out of town. I think Anna's going to be tuning in, Anna Richards. And so the village council is participating, but they're not going to be active. They're just basically watching. So once again, if no questions, we'll go ahead and move to the next order of business. That will be the selection of the chair and the vice chair. So I guess we'll open it up for nominations from the committee. Just raise your hand so we can recognize you if you want to make a motion, or because we need to have an action item.
Are we going for chair or vice chair right now?
I think probably chair, because then the chair can take the meeting over. So elect the chair first, and then the chair can take over. Any nominations for chair or any volunteers, or I'm not sure how you want to do it.
I'll nominate Ty. Oh, sorry.
So nomination is Ty Harris. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Any further nominations? Seeing none, without objection, Ty Harris is the chair. I guess let's go and call the roll just to be official. So the motion is to select Ty Harris as the chair. Go ahead and call the roll.
Okay, I didn't see the second.
I did. Yeah, Joe Roth.
Okay.
This will also serve as your roll call, I guess.
Okay, committee member Roger Young,
Yes.
committee member Joe Roth,
Yes.
committee member Craig McVeigh,
Yes.
committee member Ty Harris.
Here.
This is a yes
It's
or
a
no.
yes or no.
Yes.
And Lori Lalonde,
Yes.
and member Susan Raffanello,
Yes.
and member Richard Black.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Congratulations. I'll now officially pass the gavel to our new chair, Ty Harris.
Thank you. So now we're taking nominations for vice chair.
Do I hear any nominations?
I'll nominate Susan. I think you had already voiced interest, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, is there a second? All right, then I guess we're going to call the roll.
All right. Committee member McVeigh, you made the,
Yes.
made the
Yes.
motion, so you're first. Committee member Young,
Yes.
okay. Committee member Lalonde,
Yes.
committee member Raffinello,
Yes.
committee member Roth,
Yes.
committee member Black,
Yes.
and Chair Harris.
I'll try not to say here. Yes.
That passes 7-0.
The next item on the agenda is the village charter and resolution establishing the committee. Ron, is there, do we need to read that into the record, or are we good with that and we can get on the public comment?
No, I don't think you need to read it. And once again, it's on the website. There's also a copy here for the people in the audience. And so, we published it after the village council passed the resolution. And just for briefly, for people that are at home that maybe haven't seen it, what the resolution did, it basically talks about how we've operated under the charter since the law was passed in 1997 by the state legislature creating the village. At various points since that incorporation, the charter review has recommended some changes that have been submitted in the past, and that they've now established this committee. It's a seven-member committee, and to recap, two are appointed at large by majority vote, and those were Joe Roth and Craig McVeigh, and the rest of you are appointed individually by council members. So that's the seven-member committee. They basically, you meet at least once a month, more often if you decide. So we've talked maybe initially maybe once a week, but it could be a minimum of once a month. They're all open to the public, and you're advised you are covered by sunshine. So you're not, after this meeting, you're not allowed to speak to each other unless it's in a public meeting. So basically make clear that you're covered by sunshine. We're going to take minutes of the meetings, and they'll be recorded. It's being broadcast live, and we are recording it. So if somebody misses, one of your friends want to see what happened, just tell them to go to the village website, and we'll have a video of this meeting. And then you can't miss more than 2 consecutive meetings without justification. Other than that, you have to report monthly to the council, village council, of what you've done. And we need the final report no later than May 31st, advising the council of any recommendations. And when you do make recommendations, you're going to need a separate vote on each one. So you won't be making a slate of things. Each one has to be considered individually. I talked to Vice Chair, and she's already looked at the sections, subsections. That's kind of the way you probably should look at it, is to say, I want to talk about subsection X, Y, Z, and then you would take up discussion and then a vote, and then that would go to council, and then if approved by council, go to the voters. I think that's pretty much it. And once again, they're all public record. And that this will sunset 7 months from the date. So this is not a perpetual committee like Parks and Recreation Committee, for example. Once your work is done, the committee will be dissolved. So I think that answers most of them. Attached is the House Bill 1265 that was passed in 1997, which basically created the village, but is the charter. And so when you're looking, if you can just describe, what sections you may want to talk about tonight, as far as what I think. There's been discussion publicly about what you should or shouldn't look at. There's no restriction. You can talk about anything in the charter you want to, but I think there's some things like terms of office for the village council, so that's pretty common that we know that you're going to be talking about. So you might want to just bring that up. There's other things like height limitations that some people may want or not want to talk about. But once again, now that you're appointed, you can talk about anything in the charter you want to. You can change anything, but it still has to go to council and the voters, but there's no restriction as far as what you can or can't do as far as it goes to the charter. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer your questions, but at this point, the ball's in your court.
So, I mean, when you look at the agenda, it doesn't seem like we have a lot of leeway right now to discuss substantive issues tonight. But I would think that we would want to kind of pick the sections we want to focus on for the next meeting and maybe lay out some issues that we've heard about, that people discussed, term limits, seat versus the top 5, compensation, hour, how many years, those kind of things. Is it appropriate for us to discuss, if not in substance, but in outline form, things so that when we come back at the next meeting, we're prepared to move forward on?
Yeah, in response, I think with the initial meeting, I think a lot of people weren't really clear what you were or not going to take up. It's probably one reason it's not a packed house here, because you didn't really have anything out there to talk about at this point. But in going through, and once again, people that may be watching from home, I'll go through real quickly section, like section 1 is a short title, that's not my thing. Legislative intent, that's the original intent to create the village.
Right.
Section 3 is incorporation limits, municipal powers, that's number 4. Number 5 is probably the one you're going to look
That's
at.
the
Village
meat.
council, that has the composition, qualifications, the term of office, the compensation expenses, the election of the mayor and vice mayor, their powers and duties. So that's going to be the big one, section 5. Section 6 is budget and appropriations. I'm not sure there's been a whole lot of discussion about that. I mean, you can look at it. Charter officers, right now, that's something you can talk about, but I'm saying those are some things that you can look at. They've been in there for a while. Elections are governed by the charter, but also by state law. So there's some restrictions of what you can and can't do for elections, for example.
Right.
You have to follow state law, and it's like qualification of campaign finance laws, et cetera. It's not just the village. You'd have to follow state law. There's a transition schedule, et cetera. So, and looking back, I would say section 5 is really where you're going to be focusing most of your attention. There may be a couple other sections, but people that are watching from home, once again, if you want to go online and see what section 5 is, that's probably going to be where you're focusing most of your attention, but there, once again, is no restriction on what you can talk about.
Well, would it be appropriate under the way this agenda is set up for us to actually articulate those issues under section 5? I think there's some other sections that we may want to touch on so that we're prepared for the next meeting to actually have a substantive conversation.
And one question, Ron, and a point of order, if you will, along with what Ty is talking about with respect to the publication of the agenda and what's appropriate to discuss. I'll note that the resolution itself says at the first meeting, the committee shall also determine which sections of the charter should be considered for amendment, which is what we're talking about now. But it further then goes on and says the council shall review and approve or approve with revisions the committee's recommendations to consider such sections for amendments, and shall so instruct the committee prior to its next meeting, which raises concern to me of, I think I tend to agree, we're supposed to list the way the notice went out, list what we think we would like to be able to discuss, because it seems that the council has reserved for itself the ability to say, no, you're not going to talk about section 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, whatever it may be. Is that the case, or am I off?
No, I think that in my discussions, both individually with the council and at the public meeting where this was approved, I didn't sense any indication from the council of anyone to put any restrictions on what you will or won't discuss. So if it implies that, I don't think that would be the right interpretation. They have final approval of whatever you do to put on the ballot.
100%.
But as far as saying what you can or cannot discuss, I don't think there's any restriction on what you've been duly appointed, and now you have leadership on this committee. I think you can talk about any section you want to. I'm just saying, as far as relevancy, a lot of sections you wouldn't want to talk about because there's nothing you can do. Like our municipal limits, they are what they are, and you're not going to change it. So you can talk about it, but it's not going to be actionable. The actionable things, I think, are the section 5 and maybe a couple other sections. And I think it is good for you to talk about tonight. There's no restriction, because I think it's good for the public. If the public has some input they want to give you individually, they'll know, I do want to talk about terms. I mean, I've already started doing research. For example, I've looked at other cities of how they elect their members, whether they run at large, whether they are running from a district or against each other for seats. that kind of thing. There's some jurisdictions that elect the mayor, and they're the mayor as opposed to the chair of the council, which rotates every year. Those are all things I think that the public has already told me they want to hear discussion on. But once again, that's your decision about what you want to talk about. Other things like compensation, that could be one meeting. That could be like part of one meeting because it's either going to change or it isn't. The terms, I think, are the big things because there's been a lot of spirited discussion in the past about having 2-year terms with all 5 being elected in the same election, where you could have a complete turnover. That is a discussion that's been had. I'd anticipate that's going to be one you're going to have again, whether you stagger the terms or not, whether it should be 2-year terms, 3-year terms, 4-year terms. Those, I think, are all legitimate discussion items that I think the public was going to want to hear about. And I think if you just talk about tonight that that's kind of what you're looking at, then next meeting, let's say next week's going to be tough because some of us are being in Tallahassee. So next week is Florida Keys Day week.
Right.
So you might have to take that into consideration. You can have the meetings whenever it meets your approval, but maybe not next week, the week after, schedule another meeting. But that gives people time to look at the charter, maybe talk to you individually, for you to start getting input from the public, and then get into the meat of the discussion maybe the week after next. But tonight, it's only 5:46. We start at 5:30, so I don't think we have any time constraints. And so if you want to take some time tonight and just talk, I don't think there's any reason not to do that.
I would like to hear from each member what they've heard is an issue we need to discuss, and then we put a list together, and then we kind of break it down to, what's a manageable amount for one meeting and what's a manageable amount for the next meeting, and then just take it like that. That we don't need to do any more than that. Is everybody good with that? So I could start with Richard and see what he wants to put on the list, and then go to Joe and Lori, and then we'll work to Craig, and we'll work to Roger, and then Susan and me. I think that's probably the way to do it. So, Richard, you have the floor, sir.
I think it's just section 5, the village council. I have a number of things to discuss on that list, and I'm sure all of us do as well. So I think we need to spend perhaps some time on that, even this evening, just to discuss, to figure out what parts of that we want to look at, instead of us looking at all of this as a whole. Just narrowing it down, I think, is a smart thing to do. And just hearing from people in the community, I think that's kind of a hot topic. And the other thing that keeps coming up is the height restrictions. That constant reminding from people, and I've kind of run into them on the street, is that not part of the village council, but just the, how high can you build is something people are concerned about here. So that's kind of the 2 main things, without going into detail for all of that.
Joe?
Okay. So I did review this, and I haven't had anybody give me any input as of yet. I've kind of figured tonight we would be looking at this, as the resolution says, to make a list, and then that would probably prompt people to come and give input on those things. But as we've all stated, section 5, paragraph 2, term of office, paragraph 5, compensation. This one is paragraph 7. It's like subset 5. Some of these are maybe house cleaning things, maybe some things that need to be adjusted because of the era that we're in, more of an electronic era versus a print era. There are some things in here that allude to printing and things that we could probably do differently. Not something we would probably have to spend a ton of time on. That shows up in number 9, village records. Let's see. I wanted to talk a little bit about referendums under section 8, elections. And then I believe I did highlight the height section as well. We'll just check here for sure. Yeah, general provisions, paragraph 3, height restrictions.
Thank you, sir. Lori?
So, not surprisingly, Joe mentioned everything that I was thinking of. Also, I'd like to include the responsibilities of mayor. I guess it's called the powers of the mayor. That's it.
Thank you. Craig?
I definitely have similar ones with elections, with terms. That's something we've heard people talking about a lot. With the fact that we could turn over 5 council members every 2 years is really tough on the staff. So I think trying to look at that, but I know there was just a referendum for wages was the last one or the one before?
Last one.
And it got rejected. So I'm hoping, obviously, whatever we discuss, the public will have some sort of input and get on board with it, because it's one thing for all of us to spend a bunch of time here, but if the public doesn't know what it comes up on a ballot and they just say no, then all our time's wasted. So I'm hoping we can have a good discussion amongst ourselves with any public and, try to get everybody involved. So if something does come on the ballot, people will actually know what they're looking for. I know it's tough, for everybody to read everything that's coming up on the ballot, but hopefully, as it kind of goes through and goes down the pipe, that'll happen. But obviously and whether or not we're voting for specific seats or the at-large, I don't know if that's the right term, but, picking like a top 5, those are things that, I've heard people talk about, I've had, I think, we should look at making some changes as well. I think compensation should be increased, but if that just got rejected last time around, then, could always try it again. But I don't think it says in here, it's $300 a month it says in here, but I don't think that's accurate.
It's 1,000.
Yeah.
1,000.
Which it's,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's still, I think for the amount of
showing.
time council members put in, it's, you put that down to an hourly wage, that's not much, is it, Don? So, so those are kind of some of the things that I'm interested in looking at.
Thank you. Roger?
Well, pretty much the only thing anybody's talked to me about is Section 5, the terms and the term limits, and then I think it was 13, the precincts thing, if we go at large instead of precincts. That's pretty much where everybody's going. The height thing, like Richard brought up, that only comes up when somebody's trying to talk about building something over, condos and such, and that's not happening here anyway. So, but pretty much that's it.
Thank you. Susan?
Sure, thank you. I echo what's been said about Section 5. It's pretty much almost, not every subsection certainly, but almost every main section, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 11, 12. So almost every section of Article 5 or subsection of Section 5, I think has something, whether it be large, as most people have indicated, or more nitpicky, like printing documents. But something can be looked at there. With respect to Section 6, budget and appropriations, one of the frustrations that I have heard from the public is the fact that the village council doesn't have any requirement to approve a budget until the day before the next fiscal year when the budget would go into place. I think that puts undue pressure and last-minute nature of everybody, right? Undue pressure on the council because they have no leeway. You've got the next fiscal year the very next day, and they have to do it. I think that could be modified to allow for at least 30 days with at least a 90-day, for example, proposal from all the staff and village heads that you would need so that the village council would have adequate time to actually review it. I'm going into more detail than I should. I apologize. I'll stick to just Section 6, Part 2. The Section 7 under charter officers, again, it's a charter officer situation, but I think the village attorney, if the village chooses not to have an actual on-staff village attorney, I have had a lot of people express concern about outsourcing the village attorney because it is very, very difficult for a council, especially given the sunshine laws that they would have to confer with each other to properly manage and direct outside counsel who bill on an hourly basis. I don't think it's appropriate for outside counsel to have nearly unfettered billing power as opposed to being, if there's not a general counsel, if you will, on staff of the village. One thought is to put the day-to-day supervision. Obviously, major decision authority continues to vest in the council, but the day-to-day management and oversight, especially for budgetary constraints, may fall to the manager. That's sort of not a big thing. I mean, and if we hire a village attorney, he's still a charter officer. It's more what to do with the outsourcing. Because right now, technically speaking, the outsourced village attorney is filling a charter officer position, which is just a little bit odd for a firm to do. Section 8, elections, touched upon these already. Whether they should be staggered, the schedule, the determination of the election to the office, so on and so forth. In addition to that, certain issues that may require a vote of 4 instead of a majority of perhaps some major decisions like $1 million expenditures and above should be a vote of 4. Some major variances under the land use, comp plan changes, zoning changes, whether or not that should be something that's a supermajority rather than simple majority. And there's pros and cons to each way, I recognize that. Perhaps the height of the millage rate of anything up to 5 mils, that's pretty high. I agree, some petition. I'd like to talk about the petitions under that section. Obviously, the transition schedule, it can stay, but it's really moot at this point. And, I don't know, height restrictions we can certainly talk about, but I'm not sure how much because it seems to me that most people I've talked to like the 35 height restrictions, so it's certainly no higher than that, so I'm not sure how much time that would take. And then, of course, there's those things that may not be in our charter yet that we may want to add. Residents' Bill of Rights or changing the publication requirements. Most municipalities and counties, give the public at least 7 days notice of what the agenda items are in the backup material so they can thoughtfully review them. We receive them Friday late afternoon for a Tuesday meeting. And it's been a frustration, I know, of a lot of people who were like, oh, I would have gone to that meeting had I known, but the backup material wasn't published until Friday afternoon. So going a little bit above and beyond what the minimums of state law require, we might want to address. Those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you. All right. So we've got a bunch of different areas to cover. Most of it is in Section 5. Should we, and before we start public comment, because we may want to add, but can we get a consensus that maybe we take Section 5 at the next meeting, and then depending on how far we get, then either we keep going on Section 5 or we start moving to the other sections, which are more single issue?
I was going to suggest that we take 2 sections, we account for 2 sections at each meeting, and then if we only conclude or finish discussing one, then we still have opportunity to move on to the second section. If not, we can pass that on to the following meeting.
If we could knock Section 5 out with some recommendations and the next meeting, we'd be ahead of the game. Because I think the other things are going to be pretty straightforward.
Can I suggest section 5, and now I'm forgetting what number it is, that has some corollaries
Well, I know, I
that
was-
marry into that?
Section 8.
8, thank you,
So,
elections,
yeah,
yes.
we should, can we get a consensus on 5 and 8 for the next meeting? Do we
I
need
make
to-
a motion to discuss sections 5 and 8 at the following meeting.
Do we need to have public comment first, before motions?
Let's take public comment now, and then we can move on. Do we have, Marnie, do we have public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up.
Do we have anybody in the audience that
Person.
would like to make public comment?
Yeah. None on Zoom either.
Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed. We're back to the dais. Ms. Laurie.
So I make a motion that we discuss sections 5 and 8 at our next meeting, whenever we schedule that.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Marnie, can you call the roll?
Committee member Lalonde,
Yes.
committee member Roth,
Yes.
committee member McVeigh,
Yes.
committee member Young,
Yes.
committee member Black,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Raffinello,
Yes,
and Chair Terrace.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0, or excuse me, 7-0.
Hearing no other business?
No, we need to discuss when we're going to have a next meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of important.
Would be.
So I would really rather have the staff back in town. And if they're all going to be in Tallahassee, I would prefer to have the meeting when they're back. But I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say about that. Richard?
I think that's a good idea to have staff back and then also, give public time to talk to us and look at what we're going to talk about at the next meeting. And I would imagine that, the room's not gonna be full, but there will be some people here to watch. As far as meeting times, 5:30 is good for me, definitely no earlier than 5:30, so. Most days of the week are fine.
Joe?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. This time frame is good. Monday's usually fairly decent for me as well.
Okay. Lori?
I think we should wait until staff is available, and Mondays work well with me.
Craig?
Yeah, I agree as well, and I'm pretty much out of town next week anyhow, and also Mondays are usually pretty good for me.
Roger?
Tuesday, so
Okay, yeah.
whenever you want
All
after
right.
that, I'm good.
Susan?
yeah, Mondays work well, and if we skip next week, then the next one would be Monday, February 9th.
And I think that gives us time to digest 5 and 8 and have some preparation for,
Ron, is that work
Discussion.
for?
Yeah, I
Your
do want to
staff?
point out, February 10th is a Tuesday. That's the next regular village council meeting, which may be good or bad, depending on your point of view. But that way, if you do take some actions, you don't necessarily have to bring it up for consideration, but you can maybe give a report the next night to the council of what you're still looking at. I don't know if you'd be voting at that point, because you're probably still going to get more input. But the February 10th would be the Tuesday. After that Monday would be the next village council meeting.
okay, so we've got a consensus for February 9th at 5:30, and we're going to discuss sections 5 and 8. Am I good to adjourn the meeting now? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.